My name's Jay, and for the longest time, for probably about a decade now, people have been calling me Hollywood. Been a barber for about 18 years, and if you do the math, I'm 33. I've been cutting hair longer than I have. And today I kind of wanted to get into how the barbershop has shaped my life and how it's gotten me to this particular point in my life. So back around the time I was about 5 years old, I remember my mom had got me some play clippers when I was a kid. How that event would have shaped my life today, I would have never thought possible. But I graduated from Camden County Technical School being an engineer in 2007. Had certification and all, thinking I was going to be an engineer. But all the while, I've been cutting hair in my basement, just given the opportunity to talk to people. I truly, truly enjoyed it, but also was told my entire life that barbering wouldn't make me any money. It was almost like a taboo to a lot of people. It's like, oh, you're going to cut hair one day. It's like, what kind of life is that going to give you? And I kind of wasn't confident. I wasn't confident about my decision-making about being a barber. So I went with what I thought I knew society would tell me was best, and to become an engineer. Went to Philadelphia University, and the funny part was the entire time I wouldn't even be in class. I would be cutting the basketball team's hair. It got to a certain point where the college had actually told me I wasn't allowed to do it anymore, which actually kind of sucked because, the college's main goal was for me to pass their classes and, to focus on what their curriculum was for, their statistics for the school. But all the while, I still had the love for cutting hair. I love talking to people. I love changing their look, like making them feel a lot better about themselves after getting a cut. And just the overall growth that I've gotten from it has been truly amazing. But in about, I don't know, let's just say a semester or two, I'd actually ended up getting kicked out of college. Wasn't for me, and I went back there, and I think the first thing I ended up doing was actually figure out where my life was going to go now that my engineering career was pretty much done. Thanks. So I ended up getting a job just to make a couple of dollars to pay my bills over at Pizza Hut. And at the time while I was working at Pizza Hut, I'd go into Empire Beauty School over in Blackwood to get my license. Funny thing is, it's only a 9-year program that it took you almost a year and a half to complete because I barely spent time at school and I didn't give a shit. But Rod told me he would give me a shot, and I was surprised. I thought he was bullshitting, to be honest with you. Hiring a white kid in the shop. There was nobody else in there, and I was like, all right, well, maybe he's just got some pity, or who knows what it was, but he gave me an opportunity that day. Went to work, had no customers, except for the people that followed me from Great Clips, which was a good start to the business, but after sitting in the shop, I realized not a lot of people wanted to get their hair cut by me. Everybody actually thought I was the front desk guy. They were like, I'm here for this person. This person, like, oh, you need a cut? And I'm like, you still need a cut? They're like, no, we're waiting for this person. We didn't even know you were a barber. And I was like, okay, I had to truly understand, like, I had to be a barber. I had to understand what that was. And instead of just trying to talk to everybody, I kind of just sat down and listened. Sat down in a chair and just listened to everybody's conversations, listened to what they were saying, how they were cutting. Things that pretty much just take place in the barbershop. And I guess this is where my appreciation for this business really came into play. At that point, I'd only really been cutting hair because it was fun. It made me a couple of dollars so I can go to the club, or I can get, something to party with my friends that night, put some gas in the car. I was charging $5 a haircut. It was my way of just being creative and enjoying something really cool. You're changing people's looks, having great conversation, and at the end of it, you get paid. And it's like, well, fuck, that's pretty solid. That's pretty fucking solid. So I realized actually getting into a shop, life progressed. You got bills and you got all these things you want to facilitate, eventually take on a family. The responsibilities of that require a little bit more than a $5 pay for a haircut. And after realizing my engineering career had pretty much gone out the door, I really had to sit there and focus on it. And I think the coolest part was probably like going into the second week of being there and just sitting in the shop, and people talk. Everybody talks in a barber shop, but was one guy in there, and he was talking about how his life had just changed. He worked for some corporate company for like 15, 20 years. Yo, Chase, this was crazy. This is what fucked me up about the whole like corporate dynamic. He was working for this place for like 15, 20 years, talking about pensions and all these things, 401ks. And then he said he got fired. And there was no, they were downsizing, or it was some excuse, like he had done nothing wrong. It's just like, hey, it's over. It's done. And I said, wait a minute. But you were making all this, you have a family. And he was like, they don't care about you. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, this is this first week I'm really sitting in a shop trying to get clients. And, instead of building my book, I'm building like a catalog of experiences that are real to people. And that was what was tough to grasp at first. I'm like, I had lived such a privileged life that the only things wrong in my life were caused by me. That was really, I had a great upbringing. And now I'm in a place where if a conversation is awkward, I can't really run away from it. If I'm challenged, I have to talk about it. And it's like, if I sound stupid or whatever it's going to be, it's like, that's the challenge in the shop. I didn't know that was going to be it. I thought I was just going to go in there and I was just going to cut some hair, make some money, and whatever the fuck my life was entailing at that point. And then the real knowledge started coming in, like just the things people would say to me. Telling me how they had lost their money, how they had made their money, how they had, lost a bunch of weight or how they had gained a bunch of weight, and just all the different experiences. A lot of dudes come in, they want to talk about their girl, they want to talk about how to make their relationship better, how to make more money. And it was just a collective group of grown men that were like, I did it this way and I fucked up. And people just took accountability, but like maybe they didn't in the moment, but in telling a story directly after, it was like, this is why I fucked this up. And I just think that was just something I guess I felt blessed to have. Like the world doesn't talk to many people. If they do, a lot of times I think the conversation is very simple. Very, very like, hey, how you doing? Even if they're trying to figure somebody out, it's like, I went into blah, 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 blah. And, I realized that, in that process of learning other people, I was like, wait, barbering has nothing to do with a fucking haircut. And I thought that was the only thing I should have been doing was cutting hair. That's how I did. That's how I saw like the logistics in my mind. And, I started looking at all the people in a barber shop, coming full circle to it. We had a bunch of people working with us. There was like 6 barbers in a room, all 6 different personalities. The one that's wise, the one that's young, the female, the OG, and complete quiet when it doesn't say anything. It's like we got these 6 personalities. And they had the red and white kid in the room. It's like, oh, how's this gonna go? You fucking insane. But in that light, the barbershop just kind of started showing me that being such a diverse amount of life to be able to understand and live. I grew up around a lot of people who saw things really one way, never really saw that there was another option to life. It's like, hey, you go this route, and then this is where you go, and then this is where your life's going to be. And I'm like, I felt like I was sold that for so long, and that by the time I had tried it, I was like, fuck, man, y'all do this for 40 years? Like, how? Even people that are just barbers for 40 years, like, even to do the same thing, it's like there has to be some kind of a self-purpose to it. And I remember as I, like, actually started getting clients and talking to them, like, they would be like, yeah, I'm talking to Michelle tonight. I can't believe I'm going out with her. And people just being so vulnerable that they wouldn't out in public. Like the chair was a special place to be like, yo, can I tell you something? Can you help me with this, or can you like support my decision, or let me know if I'm making a good choice? It's like, hell yeah, like the shop would collectively do that. You had your banter all the time, like people talking about sports, shit like that. You know what I mean? But for the real experience, it's the guys really looking to kind of put their egos down for a second and really just ask a question. It's like, hey man, I need help. Like, who do I go to? And I think the one thing that we kind of got a little bit of an issue with, and I can definitely say I've made this mistake so many times. Like, I used to bring problems to people that don't have the answer to my question. Like that was the biggest thing that I would make a mistake on. It's just, I always felt like I wanted emotional support. And I didn't need emotional support. I needed logical support. I needed some people that in my life were on a path that if I was trying to get there, like I could actually ask them, I forget how it went, but it's like, you don't ask the science teacher a history question. You know what I mean? It's like, well, just because it's a teacher doesn't mean it's teaching and understanding the same thing that you're trying to understand. Like, that was always something where I feel like the world got real confused. It's like, I want to go talk to the people that make me feel the best. And it's like, yeah, but if you can't move the best, you're always feeling your worst. You know what I mean? Like, that was always something I saw, like, the masses do. And being in a shop, everybody just held each other accountable. I wasn't allowed to fuck up. If I did something stupid, it was almost thrown directly into the center of the shop. It's like, well, why were you doing this? Why were you doing that? It's almost like your mom and dad like scolding you because you did something stupid. And it's like, these people genuinely care. And I think that was the coolest part about the shop. Like, everybody cared. Everybody cared about if you got better or not. Like, we didn't really like it actually would hurt us as barbers to maybe see somebody coming in fucked up off of drugs. He's sitting in a chair all dipped out. It's like, come on, man, get up, dude. Like, get up. Like, what are you giving up on life for at this moment? Like, we hated seeing shit like that, dude. That was tough. And it was like, we want to try to bring this community up. And it was a black shop. So I can definitely say I had like a massive like cultural difference in there. I grew up from like a middle class, if you want to call middle class, like white family from suburbia. You know what I mean? And then I'm in a spot where it's almost every black demographic, like all in between. It's like from the hood to the hills, like all money involved, all different jobs involved. Like, it was almost like the same comparison to like the white community in a sense. It's just in different places. Everything's like just spread out, and it's like, it's all meant to be disconnected, but it really is all relative at the very end. Like, I think spending almost 9 years in there, being the only white guy in there, it was kind of like, it's kind of like off topic for a second, but you could almost see how like the mass media like destroys society, like to some really odd way. Like, you get to points where you realize you're all just people in a room, and like the people that actually focus on the race are the ones that have it occupying their mind. Like, I realized there were so many people that were like, I don't know, man, like, I don't even think about white people being racist, or I don't think about black people being racist, or like just the topic of it, like, to me, the barbershop actually showed me what was really like broken about racism, and it's a fact that it's like more of a collective, like from a mass perspective, as opposed to an individuals. Most people I saw individually like didn't really pay attention to it. It was more like just a mass group that like they just attracted to because they thought it was correct, which was wild. And, I got to a point where some of the most influential people in my life were black. And that's what was crazy, because when I would tell people like, yo, my Muslim boss was the one who schooled me on the game, they were like, nah, I can't picture that. I'm like, because you only have an assumption of what other people are telling you. I used to tell people, like, yo, sit in a barbershop for one fucking week when it's just a busy week and just listen to these people talk from all different demographics too. But like, the leader is a black man. You know what I mean? It like almost throws off like the way people view the society of it. Like, I guess now it's different, but what, 10, 15 years ago, like, it wasn't as like broadcasted as it is now. It used to be. I just, it's cool to see it like in a bigger perspective now. But I don't know, like, as you can tell, like just listening to me rant for a second, it's like the barbershop was a place of so many things going on at one time, so many like growth points. Like, you're trying to learn, you're trying to grow yourself, you're trying to make some money, you're trying not to piss people off, and you're also not trying to challenge somebody so hard that you're fighting a war you don't need to. Like, there was so many times, there was my homie B, and if he ever turns this on and he watches this episode, it's going to be like, you taught me a lot. And he was like my big brother in the shop. Everybody's got somebody in the shop that like is something to them. Like, Ron was the OG. He was the mentor. He was the wise leader. Chris was the OG who just had super crazy ass stories. He's like, yeah, man, I was over here doing this. And it's just like, what? It's that guy still living his life at like 50 years old. And it's just like, the examples were crazy. This is a 50-year-old dude with abs, fresh cut. Like, you don't know this guy's 50. Like, his perspective of life was like, you think I want to look like that? Or he would like point out examples. Like, he was a very strong-minded like individual to where he would see something he didn't want to be, and that's kind of what like he chose to like make sure he like stayed away from, which was cool, you know. But I don't know, all these different things, like they all come into play, and I guess all that influence, you know, the whole point to like the barbershop and I guess being a barber is you taking everything you get from it and putting it into the chair. Frank, hey, Frank, stop. I can cut that part out.
Yeah, I feel like you met like a ton of people, obviously, in this chair or whatever chair, like, and just listen to a bunch of people, like, you have like a really memorable customer.
A really memorable customer.
You never forget this guy.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. So team. I'm gonna say probably in 2014, 2015, there was a guy that came into the barber shop. His name was Giuseppe, and young Italian kid. He was a boxer, you know, just like real attitude, real grit about life. And he was a little intimidating, and I was almost like, not many people intimidate me, like, but his energy did. And I was like, shit, man, this guy's got something in him that, like, I'm just curious, like, you know, should I want to hit the gym with this guy? Like, what the hell, like, fuels you? And then I remember we had smoked a blunt one day after the shop, just talked, and he was in jail. He was clearly a fighter, like, you know, just a good boxer all around. Like, you know, you could see the tattoo on him. But we became really, really close. And in the time that we got really close, I had almost like looked at him like a brother. And then right as I feel like we had like almost like the most challenging things as friends come into play, we've argued, like we've gotten close to swinging at each other. And I guess like we broke so many barriers, like as people, that even in that short amount of time, it's like I knew who he was and he knew who I was. Like he didn't fault me for the things I was bad at, and I didn't fault him for the things he was bad at. It was just an understanding that we're two people that just, like, we want the same thing. Like we want to win. Like we want to get through this fucking life. And about to the end of 2015, middle of 2015 to the end, he had found out that he had cancer. He was only 34, 35. He was young. And it's tough because anybody listening to this, it's like you would have to get a visual of this guy. Like he was about 5'9", 5'10", 5% body fat, 185 pounds of just brick muscle. He looked like he was a walking around fighter, like fight weight. Like he just crazy shape. And like to hear that he had cancer was almost like, oh, I think he can beat this. He's a strong dude. And it took him, it actually took him for a ride. So for that year, I watched him with cancer. Like it was a tough one. You know what I mean? It was like, holy shit. Like I've never in my life ever broken barriers with, and I'm going to be honest, with any of my friends this way, to the point where it's like, yo, dude, like I will kill you. And it's like, you could tell he would. Like that's who he was. And I was like, fuck, man, you're a real one. And it's like to get to that point with somebody in life, that I felt like that was a blessing. It scared the ever living shit out of me, because I remember like actually answering his challenge, and for the first time in my life really being scared, like, yo, he's gonna fuck me up. Like I, you know what I mean? Like, he's gonna fuck me up. But I don't know, I guess like he just respected the challenge back, whether he had it in his mind or not. But that was the day I actually decided to cut my hair off about a month before he had passed. Yeah, we just buzzed it down. It's like, you just know. And it's like, I don't think he had a lot of support. You know, like he had lived such a unique lifestyle, whether, you know, other people say good or bad, like there's no judgment on people, but, you know, he didn't have the best support. And I guess being with him through that whole experience and not knowing like where that was going to come from, like, you know, kind of rode the wave with him, shaved my head. You know, he was a young Italian kid. Could you picture just real dark, sharp hair, always had a crazy fade. Like he looked like could have been a model. You know what I mean? One of them type of cats. But yeah, they actually called me. Here's a crazy part to that story. And this is why it makes it memorable, right? So we're at the hospital and we're just talking or whatever, we're bullshitting, and I didn't know it was going to be the last time I ever spoke to him. So he was sitting there and he made a joke. He's like, yo, man, the nurse won't let me jerk off one last time. I'm like, what, dude? And he's just sitting there. His whole family's like, Giuseppe, like still cracking, like literally dying. And he's just cracking jokes, dude. It was fucking great. And I was like, all right, dude, like I'll be back tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I'll see you. And I wasn't in a great state at that time. Like I was literally thinking to myself, I was like, yo, this may be the last time like I ever speak to him, but like it wasn't so prominent. So at the time I had my girl take me over to Skeeter's and just, I had gotten shit-faced hammered. I didn't know what to do. I just got hammered. I was doing lines of coke in the bathroom. Just, I was so disoriented and just, I never went to sleep. And at 5 o'clock, I feel like it was the weirdest thing in the world. Like that, I got the phone call and they said he had actually died. And I was like, fuck. I was like, I thought I had another day, or I thought I had more time. And then this was, like I said, this is what leads it to it being memorable. When he died, he still needed a haircut. So before they took him out of the bed, I cut his hair while I was on the bed.
Damn.
So that, I would say, is like the most memorable, because it taught me so much. Like, this dude fought till like the end, and like he knew it was a fight that he wasn't even anticipating. And I guess that's why we understood each other so well. It's like, I'm willing to fight for my life, and I think most people will fight for theirs if they're actually in a battle like that makes them fight, you know. And like I said, dude, that's barbershop shit. Like, I met this dude at the shop. This dude was just another cat who was like, yo, man, you want to smoke a cigarette real quick? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And he was just edging it back and forth, you know. And dude, that's just one part of my life that had just massively changed from the shop. You know, I remember it was the first time I had ever like used my voice to actually like speak my, like somebody was kind of trashing me in the shop, and I was like, yo, man, who are you talking to like that? Like, I'm not looking for support at this point. It's like, yo, don't talk to me like that. Like, it's fucked up. Like, I'm not here to insinuate like a problem. And it's like, and dude's like, yo, my bad, man. And it's like, all right, cool. You also learn in the barbershop, like, once you bark back, like, how many people sit the fuck down? That's the first one. Like, there's a lot of people that I met that, like, you just don't fuck with. Like, some of the guys in the shop, like, you would always know the loud ones. It's like, you know, the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. And it's like, sometimes that's not true. You know, some of the strongest men in the room are just very happy and very, like, outgoing people. It's like, but I feel like you know that when you see them. Like, you almost look at somebody and be like, yeah, nah, man, there's, yeah, like, you just give them his respect. But, yeah, like, you just get to know, like, different types. And that's what I mean. Like, when I say the barbershop's like a gift and a curse, like, you're learning something every day, because when there's a new guy sitting in a chair or a new guy coming to the shop, it's like, all right, like, I ain't never seen this dude here before. Like, I looked at the shop from like a chessboard perspective. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm playing a whole game of chess here. I got people that support me. Those are my, you know, the barbers around me. Like, these are my pieces that I play with in life. Like, in these 8 to 10 hours a day, like, these are the people I do this with. And I'll be honest, there was very, very little problems in the shop. Like, I think there was a couple fights, like, in the shop, like, you know, over some dumb shit, some, like, quick stuff. But, yo, it was ran so right. Like, the dude Rondell was on his shit, man. And to this day still is. You know, he just understood, like, how to put the right people in the right positions to thrive. You know, it was almost one of the things that kind of, like, drove me to want to do the same thing, you know, in the next part of my barber career. You know, I think this is merely just like a whole thing where you open up. You get to a point where it's like, you learned enough to help others. You finally, like, gained enough to be able to give back without giving too much of yourself first. You know, like, there was a lot of people in the shop that they were all about helping people, but the problem is they didn't help themselves first. So eventually they would constantly keep crapping out and crapping out.
You have to be selfish.
Yeah. I rode the wrong part of that wave for a while. Like, I was always a giving, like, type of person. You know, I want to give out the knowledge. Like, if it helped me and cost me nothing to give to you, like I always said, like, I think I'm a shitty businessman. Like, I believe in what's fair to me and what's fair to you, is that's what it is. Like, if I were to give you $1 million, but you fixed one problem that, you know, could save me millions, it's like, I don't care if I gave that to you. Like, it was worth, like, what you needed and worth what I needed. Like, the transaction was worth it. you know.
That was a good story with
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe.
Dude, it's crazy, man, because, like, I didn't ever think, like, the shop would... This was supposed to be just a job to me. That's what it was supposed to be. You know, I remember talking to Dylan. He's like, you know, sometimes, you know, the fun of the hobby goes away when it turns into a job. And I was like, yeah, like, learning wasn't fun. It wasn't. Because everything I would do in my life, I brought back into the shop, and everybody's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, when they found out, like, I had done drugs, like, and I was going down that party realm, and when they found out I was, you know, pissing money away, or, you know, I was just living, like, a really unhealthy type of lifestyle when I was taking steroids at a ridiculous level, like they were all there to check me. You know, it was, like, a sense of accountability that, like, was hard, because I don't think most people have somebody there that really is trying to make sure that they get to the right place. Like, you know, like, the arguments themselves, like, are almost a challenge to get through. It's like, yo, we need to argue so you can see what I'm trying to show you. But, like, if you really think about it, like, it's hard to trust that. Like, in today's day and age, it's really hard to trust that. You know, I see enough people now where the only reason I have the trust I have, like, with them is because we've spent literally over a decade amongst each other's company in the most, like, formal ways. Like, conversation, half an hour. Like, that's what we got. There's no, I'm going to walk away and try to get away from this. Like, it's a half an hour every time you talk to somebody. You know, you got to get the cut done. You got to make sure you get your money, do the cut right, but make sure you talk to. And just having them conversations with people for over, almost 18 years. I mean, dude, the log in my head is over thousands of people that I got to talk personally with. That's ridiculous, man. Like, sometimes my mind's blown out, like, completely. You know, what's family situations? What's their finances looking like? You know, how do I do this? Like, what's this? Like, Sharon's doing this. Like, my daughter did that. Like, my sister's over here doing this. It's like, I can't figure this out. And I'm like, fuck. And every half hour, there's another one ready to fucking go. But
You're
yeah, actually, I forgot about that. A lot of, like, yeah, I think you could actually get it done in a half hour. I think you could get a good, like, rap session if you could just accept what the knowledge is and just, like, roll it. Like,
Does it, how often do you are people coming back in?
um, I have a really good amount of once a weekers that are salesmen. Like, they're very, very big on their appearance, like, socially. So I would say 25% of my clients are weekly, 50% of my clients are bi-weekly. And the other 25% are kind of scattered between a month, come in for a razor, they cut their own hair, you know, just kind of chopping in and out. But yeah, it's a whole diversity. Yeah, at least. Yeah, right. It is kind of like therapy. I don't know. I think, like, the therapy part, like, people used to kind of clown barbers. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, you're underpaid therapists." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, but here's the best part. Like, this is where I feel like those people are wrong. Ready? Underpaid therapists, right? What does a therapist got to do? They got to get a license, don't they? They need to go to college to do that. Like, they need to build up all these massive debts to become a psychologist. And then they got to start from the bottom of their practice to then work up to making that kind of money. Like, if anything, like, as of right now, if I don't get tipped out, I make $80 an hour. Like, that's no tips from anybody. So it's like, I have no student debt. I didn't need to get all these crazy licenses and, you know, all this crap to do it. And this doesn't require, like, what a psychologist. Like, if anything, like, I'm an overpaid psychologist. You know what I mean? To the degree, you know, and I'm not sitting here held up. Like, I can kind of do this on my own regard. Like, the haircut is there, but, like, I guess the therapy afterwards, it's like, it's included if you want it. You know, dude, some people just pass the fuck out.
Do you have anybody just to say, don't say anything?
Not really, man. I talk a lot. I probably irritate the fuck out of people, like, with how much I talk. Yo, you ready for this one? This thing is going to be intense. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's weird because, like, I'm not going to say the barber shop drove me to smoke more weed, but to, like, digest everybody's, like, emotions every day. Because some people, like, and I guess this is why Giuseppe was so, like, a big part of my life. He wasn't, like, an emotional guy. He was like a get shit done guy. Like, he was, like, a man of pure motion and action. It didn't matter if it was good or bad. It was just action, but, like, you got, like, so many different personalities you're downloading every day that are in your chair. And then to be in the shop, you're almost downloading the other ones too. Like, it's so much. Like, I feel like I went to school, like, in the barber shop. I just wasn't being graded. I wasn't being tested. It was just, perform. Like, it was such, like, a different type of education. You know what I mean? Like, I think if anybody could do it, just sit into a barber shop for a month. Pay the owner to just sit in his shop, sweep the floors for him, and just listen to everything going on in there. If it's a good community that, like, the barbers build up in there, it's going to be strong. And like I said, I definitely came from a great community barbershop. Like, it always promoted family values, it promoted standing up for yourself, not being stupid, taking accountability. Like, it was a great spot. Phenomenals was an amazing place to learn for the first, like, 9 years of my career, before I went independent. I was used to, like, in the beginning of my career, cutting all white dudes. Like, that's what I was doing. I was cutting, like, young Italian kids. Like, it was the Gotti haircut at the time. I think everybody was getting a little tapered blowouts with the fucking 10 pounds of fucking gel in their hair. Like, you could sleep in it for, like, a week straight and you'd be straight. Go to the club Friday night, it was the same from last week. You never even took a shower. Fucking shit was crazy. But I remember first time I cut a black dude in the shop. He was like 17, 18. He was like, yo, I'm trying to live a low and dark. And I was like, a low and dark? I was like, yeah, no problem, dude. Like, low and dark, pop the one clip on, make sure it's all combed out, run it with the grain, line it up, boom, you're done. So I put the clip on, and as soon as I put the fucking clip on, I turned the clipper on. It shook the clipper blade off because I didn't actually, like, clip the blade in. So I just went straight into the haircut. And you start at the crown, so you literally got to follow the wave. Like, you start from the origin of the wave and you follow it through. So I started right here and drug it, and I think at that moment, that was when I had my first heart attack. That shit was fucking bald. I had called Ron over. I was like, yo, dude, he knows it's fucked up. What are we going to do? And he was like, yeah, you definitely fucked that up. And I was like, damn. First one, too. First black kid I was going to cut, I was like, yo, I'm going to actually, like, do my thing on this one. Yeah, nah, fuck that all the way up. And then Rob fixed it in literally 45 seconds. It also let me know at that moment, though, it was like, yo, you could always fix something. Like, I don't know, actually, sometimes you can't fix something, but that was a fixable. He had about a good, like, inch, like, that much just cut off of his fucking head. I was just, like, pure baldness, and I was like, fuck. Oh, he was fucking junior, senior, high school. Oh my God, it was fucking nuts. Here, give that a tap. That's fantastic. Kind of thing too, because, like, I always took the barbershop really serious. So, like, to have a funny moment for me, like, I was always a joker. Like, I would make jokes and crack jokes all the time, but, like, a funny moment, I never really look forward to. I feel like everything remember I was telling you a little earlier, like, comedy was, like, my way of getting through things, like, just like you. And it's like I used a lot of it, but a lot of it I kind of don't remember. It was kind of like I used it as my weapon of defense in that moment. You know what I mean? Crack a joke, do this, do that. And it's like, okay, at least, the feeling was going to be temporary anyway. I just got it out of my system faster. That was kind of the easiest way to go. All right, like, I can laugh this off real quick, or I can be angry or whatever. It's like, you can't be angry in the barbershop. We'll shut that down real fast. Like, it's the greatest thing in the world because, like, I feel like certainly I need to go to a barbershop. Like, they need to be in an area where, like, they're learning from other grown men how to be, and I don't want to sit there and say be, like, the best of yourself, but, be the best version you can be of yourself. Like, I think there's a lot of potential left on the board for a lot of people. You just got to get around the right people. Told my buddy lost his job a couple months ago. And he was like, yo, what do you think I should do? I said, yo, go get a job sweeping hair at a barber shop. And he's like 33. And he was like, why the fuck would I do that? I said, do you know how many contacts you're going to meet inside that barber shop for a couple months? I said, it's better than fucking just sitting around on a computer jerking off. I said, you're going to be in an area where people just cycle. I said, you know, go in there and work for free, man. I said, do what you got to do. I said, take a debt out, take a loan, like, do whatever you have to do. I said, just get in front of progressive people. And he did it. Well, he's not jobless anymore, which is cool. He had already talked to somebody, which was like the whole point.
Answer the question by restating my question.
Good.
When anything about it, warm the budge. No. With somebody, what's your advice for somebody either wanting to do what you do or just somebody that's trying to get into some kind of creative field? Really for that. And like, I think it just says like, just get in there. Is it who you know or is it what you know? You know what I mean? Your experience.
Yeah.
That question any which way you want, and then on to.
I think it's what you know mixed with who you know. Because I do know some clueless people around people that could really like elevate a situation for them, and just because they don't know shit of what they could elevate, that's where they go wrong. Like, so I think like who you know is a massive deal. That is a big, big, big deal. You know, to some people, like I got somebody a car recently just because they have been a great part of my life. To them, it's like, yo, I know Jay. And it's like, but that's only relevant to like me and that person. You know what I mean? But the who you know is merely more important after you already know what you want to do. You know, like that, like if you know exactly what you want, it's like, yo, I need to talk to somebody like this. And it's like, oh, well, who do you know that does that? You know, I think some people just constantly go to just anybody to understand something. It's like, you got to go to the person with the experience. And to get the person with experience is where it's like, well, who do you know? That's where I think people like start to climb and try to figure out like, you know, what it is that they're doing in this world. Like, I think we're in a cool society now where although a lot of the older generations don't believe in like this creative growing, like I am a massive fan of it. I love the creative growth because it's creating different means of income. Like, you know, I'm not trying to go philosophical to this degree, but like to take some of the money out of big corporate and kind of put it back into the people's hands. Like if it's in the right people's hands, it's going to do well. Like when I got the money for this business and how much it turned, I was like, oh, there's so much cool shit I can do now. Not like how much dope shit can I buy or fuck around with. It's like, I can do cool shit. Like I was able to run fundraisers. Like I was able to do all this stuff that it's like, I got money to do this. So now it makes sense. Like I said, I like philanthropy. Not everybody does that, but I don't know. But that's what I mean. If I ever became like a multimillionaire, it's like, I'm the guy you'd probably want to know, like, because I would want to help. You know, I would be the one to be like, oh, well, I actually have the money. Do you have a dream? It's like, all right, cool. Like, if it works, I would fund it. You know? So I just think people need to know what it is that they're trying to do so that they know who to talk to. You know? If you got sex problems, it's like, yo, go talk to a hooker. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like going back to the whole thing. Like, you don't ask a math teacher, you know, a history question. You know, just, you got to line up exactly what it is you're trying to figure out. I think that's a tough one people are like having difficulties with. You know, again, why the barbershop was so important. There was masses to talk to. Like if I needed to know something about finances, like there was a fiduciary like inside the shop and it's like, yo, what's this? And he would just explain it to me. He ain't charging me because he's cool with the shop. So like the services were like, not to say free, but it was free game. I'm speaking from my perspective and how I viewed barbering and like how much great it could do. I've seen people use barbering for a way darker side. The service itself, it is what it is. You come in, get your hair cut, whatever. But it starts becoming like what kind of clientele you develop. And that's where I can say the clientele in the barbershop, It's like, you know, they say like the company you keep, like that's your thing. It's like, well, technically, because you're becoming so close with these people, like they become your friends. Like they become people like you actually trust them, they trust you. So you almost have them as your now associates. Like they are the people that you associate yourself with. You talk to them, you chop up life with them. Like, you know, you're actually involved in these people's lives. And for a short amount of time, I had gotten really into I got really into like partying and doing coke. So of course, naturally, if I was talking to those people, like that's where that led me down. Like that's the road it took me there. Now, it built a different area of clientele for me though. Big spenders, always in the shop, always spending money, always flashing, always flexing, and always inviting me out too. Like, yo, come out, dude. And I'm like, no, dude, I gotta work, man. It's like, yo, fuck this, man. Look, I'll make sure you have a good night. He's like, all right, well, if not, come out tomorrow. We're getting another bottle. And I'm like, shit, man. Always enjoyed the good time. But it was, you know, it would take me down that road where that's how I was spending my time now. You know, I was making money and then just blowing it on the weekends. And then it was a whole different cipher of, you know, that lifestyle because those were the clients that I had acquired. And then next thing you know, it's like I didn't want to be in that world anymore. It was delusional. It was a lot of false promises. It was a lot of flexing. It was a lot of, hey, look at me, but I ain't got shit. And it's just kind of like when you're somebody of substance that wants to understand substance, it's like, why the fuck am I here? But you know, you realize why you're there. You know, you're drinking. And it's just you're entertaining. You're just getting through life, and you're just having a reason to celebrate. You know, it's Tuesday. You know, it's fucking Tuesday. I feel like people that go to the club sober is, you know, that's your true test. You know, you're not changing your perspective, you know? Like I always thought that if you go to the club drunk and that's your best person, you know, that person's not there on Monday. You know, like, so if you make connections on that day, on that Monday, it's like you try to, you know, get the connection back rolling again. It's like that person is just not that person, you know? And that's what I mean. Like those were the clients I kind of had to like stay away from. You know, it didn't really bring me, it brought me just like a whirlwind of bullshit. Was it a lot of fun? Yeah. Like it was a hell of a lot of fun. But you can have fun at any time. Like this is something, you know, my pops kind of like tried to help me understand, right? And he was like, doesn't matter. It's always going to be there. And I think when I was younger, I never really had this said to me. It was like one of them things where it's like, the barbershop told me a whole bunch of shit, but like this one, I feel like wasn't ever said to me this way. And I was going to the bar and my dad was like, what are you doing? I'm like, there's going to be some girls at the bar. He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. It's like, we know a bunch of them. And he was like, if I go to the bar, there's going to be girls there. And I'm like, what? He was like, is there going to be girls there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, just remember that. And at the time, I'm like, the fuck is this man saying to me? I'm like, what? And then he's just like, they're always there. They're always going to be there. It's like, there's always going to be a bar filled with drunk, horny women who are probably pissed off at somebody. He's like, there's always going to be a place where you could read a book. There's a place where you could go buy a car. He's like, that's called the world market. He's like, and remember that. He's like, so when you feel like you're not getting it, it's like, it's always there. And I'm like, I was in such a fucking good mood that night, charged, ready to fucking go. And then he just drilled me. And I'm like, I was like, fuck, man. Greatest advice, though, because, you know, I realized I didn't need to keep partying and doing all that shit. So then my clientele actually started becoming like new fathers, you know what I mean? Real estate agents. You know, I don't know, I kind of gravitated towards a different clientele. And then once I was leaving the network of one clientele, like I'd have a few of my people that I like gained like good friendships with that I still talk to today. And then the rest of the people kind of flourish out, you know, they're still over there doing their thing in their world, you know? It's like the barbershop to me was like the multiverse, dude. That's like the greatest way I could like explain this, you know? Like you go into like this person's world, like, and now it's like, yo, what's Bob doing? It's like, this is what Bob's doing. And then it's like, all right, come back out. And it's like, all right, I'm going over here to the gym. And then it's like, what's he doing? It's like, yo, he's building a house. All right, cool. Zoom out. Any chance I get, I connect the world. As of right now, I think one of them is on their way. Almost 10 six-figure businesses were developed in here. Not me personally, But to just sit here and we chopped up ideas and those ideas were trusted with me just to build. And it's like, we built that with everybody that's in this shop. It's just the community was building amongst each other. And shit, man, that was a fucking like I almost felt like that was purposeful. You know, like you could take somebody's life and connect it. And it's like, yo, now these two people are thriving together. And it's like, wow, you know? And it's like, that's not even something you ask for more for. That's just like, that's an accomplishment. To me, that's great. Like, that's something that most people don't do. And not to say they wouldn't do it. I feel like if you actually do put people in a position for others to thrive, I think they would make the right choice if it was in their favor. I think if it's not in your favor, you can't make that call. You know what I mean? But if it's in your favor, it's like, all right, that's that cat's character. Like what exactly is he made of? And for me, being in the shop, watching how my boss grew the people in his shop, like, yo, go talk to him for this. Good. Okay, do this for this. And like everybody was on like a tight understanding. It's like, all right, cool. Like the barbershop was a community. And I guess like when I went, you know, private with my business, it's like I wanted to build that community. And I thought about like what type of clients were around, like who do you know? It's like, shit, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people doing a lot of things. It's just, does it work with the thing you're doing? You know? Yeah, I think that people just want to be around successful people sometimes. And it's like, yeah, but like, what's the connection? Like there has to be like a mutual connection. And yeah, and I think you can't even get to that without like having a conversation. Like, and that's where it's just got to be real. Like I always felt like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes talking to somebody it's very key. Like, what do you want to know about that person? Like a lot of times when I talk to my clients in the chair, like I'm trying to understand what it is that they are trying to understand at that time. You know, usually somebody asks a question. They ask me how I'm doing. I'm like, I'm chilling, man. I said, doing the same thing I was doing a half hour ago, the same thing I was doing last year, same thing I was doing 10 years. I said, I'm just doing it differently every single time. And that's just all these people just downloading a new conversation. It's like a fucking computer up here. It's just like downloads. Oh my God, I've definitely confused the story here and there, but it's like, actually, here's one for you. Like, this is where I could say this is like a blessing that I think most people would like to experience and not just assume is there. Like, how do I explain this? Fuck, man, I just had a blank out. What was the question? You know how some people like fluff stories? Like I have a bunch of people in my life that like fluff stories. It's like, you didn't have to in the shop. Like, they were so raw sometimes that like you could tell it was raw because it was uncomfortable. And like that's the story like you started telling and like people actually started listening. Like some of my buddies that I guess are still wheeling and dealing like socially, still talking this, that, and third, like in their upbringing conversations, like, you know, remember when I said you got a couple minutes to talk to somebody and it's like that's the way you presume to talk to them? It's like you kind of screwed up from the gate. You know, it's like you got to go directly in, like, and I think that's where people are trying to, this is where I think like the barbershop helped me with this particular part. It might be a little off topic, but it's like emotions. I like manage them all day. Like that's like, I manage emotions all day to the point where I'm just trying to bring logic to them. Like that's my biggest challenge, like as a barber, when people are telling me how they feel and I'm like, if I just take you and look at you like a 3D peg and just look at you like a sim real quick, it's like, all right, where's your energy levels? It's like, what do you got to do to get back right? And a lot of times it's a battle of emotion between things that like they just don't do. It's weird. Humans just do that. I do it. You know what I mean? Like I just try to preach it the best way I can, you know, and practice it the best way I can. Because nobody's perfect, but some of the battles that people fight, they're kind of like, I'm like, damn, dude, like I wish like you didn't fight this hard about this thing. You know, like that's always like my biggest thing. Cause like, I'll be honest, like someone loses a parent, somebody goes through something that is life-changing, you know, they get the shit kicked out of them so bad they died. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like, remember I said there was like outliers to life. It's like, there's like weird statistics that happen to people where it's like, that one person has just a little bit different of an understanding than the other. And it's like, and I think that's what makes the managing of like emotions a lot easier for certain people, but it's fucked up, man. I never wish it on anybody, but you see like there's people with a more grounded sense of reality once some real crazy shit happens to them. Like the illusion of like safety, the illusion of like always having something there. You know what I mean? It like goes away. And sometimes it's like knowing that's a possibility. It's like that's how I like to take the emotions that I hear and just kind of logically draw them down. Kind of give people more like of a true reality. It's like, okay, look, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. It doesn't matter if you feel bad or good in between each way. You have to do one of them. And when you actually give somebody a solution, it's like that becomes the challenge now. That's the real challenge. It's like, I don't want to talk anymore about how it makes you feel, because if tomorrow the sun was shining and you felt good that day, you would think about it differently. So it's like, I try to take it out as most as possible. So like, if I could take that out, it's like, what is the actual scenario to like these two things they're trying to figure out? It's like, now it's just a pro and a con. It's just kind of moving them back and forth to where it's like, all right, well, let's really make you a good decision. And then you don't have to think about everything in between. It's just, this is it or this is it. And I feel like that's like the most rewarding part about this job. Like you can look at something without, like you can look at a real simple problem, give somebody the answer, and you're like, if you actually do this, it's going to work. And then when you do it, it's like, it worked, didn't it? And like you see them, like their whole aura changes. It's fucking nuts, man. Because think about if you got a problem in your head for 5 years. For 5 years, when that problem is figured out, like then you can start living in the new perspective without the problem. So it's like when people bring problems here, it's like, let's solve them fast. Like life is short. I feel like if you're really trying to do your thing in life, like it starts creeping up on you fast. Like I remember when I was 21 and now I'm about to be 34. It's like, holy shit. Like that went by super fast. It really made me sit back and look like, there was so much more to like what barbering was giving me. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where the purpose came from. Like to that whole thing. I give my life to barbering. Damn. What a business. You know what I think the crazy part is about this business though? Like talked about, like I was like a dark side to it. It's kind of downloading everything like you didn't really think like you would want as a reality. Like you're hearing something, you're like, damn, dude, I really don't fucking agree with that. Like, fuck, like why you think this way? But they're like, but they think of that consciously. Like that's not a bad thing to them. I'm like, whoa, holy shit, you look at it this way. To some degree, you have people that will take something to a level where they'll tell you something and you have to pick whether or not you think they're telling the truth. There is also a massive part of the barbershop culture where it's like fluffed conversation. It's really until like you really sink in with like somebody and it's like, you don't have to act with me. It's like, and next thing you know, they drop their shoulders, just like, what's up, dude? And it just changes the whole vibe. And it's like, all right, cool. Now we're people again. Like the ego's not here, it's here. It's like, now let's bring the ideas out to life. Like, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, I'm always like picking something, but you got to get them to that level first. And that's the hard part. I changed my clientele for that reason. Like all of my clientele, like I have very interesting understandings with them. How they move, how they talk, why they do what they do. Like, and when other people question and judge other people, it's kind of like, I have zero judgment for anybody. Like to know all these different types of perspectives. Like I think as people, we're only like one person. So if we think what we're thinking, it's like, okay, like I'm the best thinker. I feel like everybody thinks they're the best thinker. I got around minds that scared the shit out of me. And I'm like, oh my God. And these people aren't millionaires. They're not, they're human beings, like how to get through life. And it's like, holy shit. Like this guy just doesn't even know the gift that he has, or he does and just doesn't use it. He's like, whenever I want to turn it on, I can. But I don't know. I guess that's the barbershop, man. It's just, it's a fucking experience. It's a lifestyle. It's like everything.
cut.